Are there any Polar Express passengers in need of refreshment?
Santa Claus and ho ho ho.
Where's the Tylenol? Welcome to the party, pal.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Son of a nutcracker!
Papa Gijo.
If I had my way, sir, every fool who goes about saying Merry Christmas would be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly to his heart.
Crimson, I think we have an imposter among us. I think something happened to Springs.
I think you're right. That doesn't sound like Springs. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Cheap Seat Critics Podcast, where this time we're covering Scrooge, the 1935 film. And we are ushering into a sort of theme going into the season a little bit more. And I guess it'll come forward later. With me today, we have...
Hello, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks, and boy, that was some quote out of me, wasn't it? Hey, if you're listening from the past, you can find Cheap Seat Critics Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or X, sorry. We also got a YouTube and Rumble side of things for visual, even though audio podcast, I know. But hey, with this Christmasified theme, there's some new visuals over there. We also have a LetterBoxd as well if you're interested in like our averaged out math and everything of all the numbers.
Wouldn't the audience be in our future?
Ooh, but they could be from the past.
They could be.
Okay, so what they could do, Crimson, is they could download the podcast in the future and then go back into the past when they have to visit Mr. Scrooge, and then they can just listen to it while they're traveling. You know, that's how.
Ryder, I see that as an absolute win.
All right. We shall dive straight into our histories, and this can be about this particular film or probably just Christmas Carol in general. So we'll start with Springs.
Oh boy. Hey, first time seeing this movie. This also marks the earliest movie now covered on the podcast to date, beating Wizard of Oz. But this Christmas Carol, I'm a big Christmas guy. I have currently around me, I have a Scrooge top hat. I have Christmas Funko Pops of Christmas Carol. I got stuff. Yeah, I also have a comic somewhere of Marvel Zombies Christmas Carol, and it's there's versions of this film that I see probably every year. But for the pod, this is my first time seeing this 1935 version.
All right, Ryder.
Let's see. I have seen a lot of Christmas Carol movies at least once. This is a first for me on this one, being it's the 1935 version. The one I'm most familiar with as far as Christmas carols go is probably the CGI kind of Polar Express animated looking one.
Oh, the Robert Zemeckis one?
Yeah, I've seen that one twice, and I've seen the Muppets Christmas Carol once. But with the Christmas Carol franchise in general, I have a lot of history with it in the sense of it's a kind of a timeless story at this point. I would consider it anyway. And as for my Christmas memorabilia around me, I have nothing because I'm not at home.
All right. I will say I have no Christmas stuff around me right now. So, yay on that for me personally. What a win! What a great win on my end. As for this film, this would be the second time I've seen Scrooge, the 1935 version. I've seen a few versions of A Christmas Carol, usually like TV show specials, like Doctor Who had a Christmas Carol episode.
Well, yeah, it did.
Yeah. Listen to the song, Abigail's song from that episode quite a bit. Good episode. And I haven't seen the Christmas Carol TV show that came out a couple of years ago, I think.
Wow, completely forgot about that.
Yeah. So, some experience. I haven't seen every variation. All right. With that, we shall jump into some interesting facts. All right. So, on the facts side of things, I couldn't find anything for budget or box office. So, a bunch of question marks there. So, we'll just go with the facts I did find. Seymour Hicks, who played Scrooge in this, this was not his first time playing Scrooge. He played Scrooge on stage in 1901 and played the role thousands of times. He also appeared in a different movie for Christmas Carol called Old Scrooge in 1913.
Old? How much older can he get?
Earlier. Yeah. So he has played a heck of a lot of Scrooge in his time, or back in his time.
Did you find out how old he was in this film?
I did not look into that, but old, I guess. That's my guess. Older than 50 would be my guess, but I don't know. This film had some copyright issues in the manner that the copyright holder did not renew it, so this became public domain for quite a while, causing it to get a lot of different lower quality versions of people copying it from like a second version, a third version, and each version got more degraded. So you can see a lot of different variants of this film if you look it up online.
Yes, I found like 4 on YouTube like this morning, and none of them were great.
Yeah, that's all because they didn't keep the copyright. So, fortunate on them, I guess. We watched the remastered, enhanced one. But, I don't remember what year they did that for, but we watched a cleaner version. And the last fact I have, the bucket that fell off the door in his house.
Oh yeah, something in my notes.
Well, I guess you want to say that and I'll answer it, I guess, if it's a question.
Yeah, what is it?
Okay. I thought it was a plastic bucket. It wasn't. It was a hat box. And it is a unanswered myth whether or not that was a set goof or intentional. It has not been confirmed whether or not that was improv lines by Seymour acknowledging the goof and they kept it, or if that was supposed to be there.
Well, this is a movie full of, spirits and ghosts, right? So it's got to be the
Yeah.
Hatbox Ghost.
Hatbox Ghost. The Hatbox
Most fearsome ghost of them all.
Yeah. All right, and then that is it. There was a lot of facts regarding like people in the production and what other things they did, but I went for more direct to this film. So we shall go into our coverage, going with a popcorn structure. Can go anywhere in the film, but I imagine we're probably going to go fairly linear. Starting with writer.
Oh dearest me, oh boy. I will start at the beginning. I actually quite liked the book intro because it pays homage to the fact that this was a book story first. And they did it in a different way because I don't recall. I don't think I've seen it all that much where they kind of like have the book and then they like the book's title, like the no, this is the wrong word for it, but kind of like the credits, I guess, in the book. And then it opens to the preface, in which we then kind of zoom into the story. I mean, that's very, very, especially for 1930s. I think it's very, very meta, I suppose, for that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I quite enjoyed that. Nice, neat set of visuals.
Yeah, I like how they showed the spine of the book for the audience to read it, and it's too hard to tell. It could just be the version we saw, but we apparently saw the enhanced version. So
it's hard to read any of it.
Well, yeah, the like broader horizontal lines and the very skinny vertical lines of the lettering did make it a bit difficult to read. I did like the implementation. It was a little interesting that they showed pages turning and then they cut to fading.
Thank
And then they
you.
went back to folding pages.
Absolutely.
Yep. That was weird.
I'm sure it was to save time and stuff.
Yeah.
But the third instance of a fade is both. It's a page flip and a fade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what kind of I was confused by that enough to wonder if this was like if they were those like names were really there in the book or if they were like scrawled on, you know,
What do you mean? Like put on
like
the
drawn
film
like
instead of?
yeah they were drawn onto the film itself rather than the actual book.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I think they would be in the book because the shake of the film matches up. Otherwise, those names would be jumping in different
Moving with
movements.
the film.
Yeah. So I think they're written in, but I think that book is just a blank notebook, of course.
Yeah, I thought it. Yeah, I like I said, it could have gone on the way for me pretty much because I thought it was very clever and cool until that like little jump happened or whatever the fade you're talking about. It was good though.
Yeah, being
For
the
the most part.
30s, not many effect techniques they could go with. The one right off the bat is the title of Scrooge at the beginning before the book gets pulled out, and that is overlapped film for the fade of both, the transparency.
Mm-hmm.
But with that image, you can see that the both films on each other are moving in different movements.
Yeah, something I thought that was kind of cool just thinking about it because Christmas Carol came out in 1843. Charles Dickens died in 1870. I think it's been a while. Something around there, I think. And this came out in 1935. So there's people that would have known him during this. Meanwhile, for us watching newer stuff, like, oh, that was so long ago. This movie was closer to when the book came out than us to World War One. It's weird to think of timelines like that.
Interesting.
Yep.
I
And
checked
it's also
here. Seymour Hicks was born 1871. And he
a
died
year after he died. Yeah, 'cause
died
Charles Dickens
1949.
died. Yeah.
So he was 64 in this movie.
There's something interesting to think with timelines there.
Wasn't there something about like the weird timeline of like there was like the English something? It was like there's I saw it on some like form of like a D&D thing where it's like you could have the Wild West, the samurai, the something in England, like all these different like eras, but they were all lined up where were all like the same time.
Yes,
yeah, there was samurai in Japan while there were cowboys in North America. Yeah.
Yeah, the samurais were around they were around for very early on, but they were there. They existed up until like the early 1800s, and that's when they kind of started finding to modernize.
Yeah, one of the crazy ones for me is that there were mammoths around during the pyramids on an island up in was Iceland or Greenland, one of the two.
Time is weird.
Very interesting. Yeah. All right, we shall jump to Springs.
Let's see. The titling at the beginning, written controlled throughout the world by Twickenham Film Distributors, sounds like an evil villain phrase, like just a distribution company just reading out controlled throughout the world.
Yeah, I could see that. James Bond villain or something.
Yeah.
Or Incredible Shrinking Woman, whatever the heck the name of that company was.
I found the thing I was looking
Organization of World Management. There we go.
Oh yeah, I found the thing I was looking for. The time things: Victorian England, American Old West, Meiji Restoration, and French privateering in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yep. It's a crazy time.
Yep. Victorian gentleman, gunslinger, samurai, and a pirate. That was it.
Yeah, all very interesting. We'll go with Ryder again.
All right. Let's see. I Actually, because I don't remember Marbly as a character from the other versions of Christmas Carol. I kind of wrote Marbly down with a couple question marks, wondering if that was supposed to be Scrooge's wife or business partner, and then obviously that gets answered going forward. But I think that was the first instance where I've noticed, I guess, something different about this particular variation of the story that I was a little less familiar with. Because Marbly might be a character in other versions of the story. It's just been a while since I've seen any Christmas Carol variant outside of Muppets, I think.
One more time. What's the name?
Marbly.
I don't know who that
Marlo?
is. I know Marley, Jacob Marley.
I wrote it based on what the sign said. So
Okay. Because I'm with you. I don't know Marbly.
all right. Well, as long as you know who it is.
I know Jacob Marley. Yeah, that's the first ghost to visit him about the three spirits.
And yeah, I forgot what I was going to piggyback off that point. Whoopsies. Oh, I know. There was something that this one does that a lot of other versions of Christmas Carol don't depict is showing him when he's dead later, covered with a cloth.
Oh, the coins on his eyes?
This was the first one to depict that from a live-action adaptation of a book, and there hasn't been many since this that have shown that depiction.
I think most just jump right to the grave, right?
Yeah, a lot of them, yeah. Not the grave robber stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Frank says, huh.
Well, I guess so. I'm a fan of Christmas Carol, but I have not seen every single adaptation or iteration of it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But what's the hand part?
Oh, learning that it's not like a common thing to be in adaptations, as you said.
Yeah, I came across that during my fact searching.
Yeah. I guess I'm just not too familiar with what is and what isn't in common usage of the takes on Christmas Carol.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's always going to be a Tiny Tim.
And there should always probably be a Scrooge. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's probably some ghosts around.
There's probably always a ghost of Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas future.
Possibly. I saw the what was it? It's a weird name. The Ghosts of Ex-Girlfriends Past with Matthew McConaughey. I don't know if those ghosts are those ghosts depicted of the right times of past, present, and future? Oh, okay.
Don't know. Couldn't tell you.
Just thinking about it now, I realize I think there was a variation of the story where all the ghosts visited more than once.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
So like they went in the line, like Christmas present, Christmas past showed something, Christmas present showed something, future said something, and then past came back to show something, present came back to show something, and future came back for the last time to show something. It was I think it's been like I said, I've seen a lot of variations, but I don't have a strong memory in a lot of them.
Let's see. I'll bring up a question kind of further in the film. I just feel bad for Jacob Marley because he didn't get a warning like Scrooge did. Scrooge
he was just that
lucky.
Terrible of a person.
Well, Jacob Marley was terrible enough to get stuck with eternal limbo in
that's
chains.
A good pitch. Is Jacob Marley a worse person than Scrooge?
I mean, the way he talked to Scrooge, it sounded like Scrooge would have a longer chain than him, which would imply he's worse.
I guess it just depended on who died first. Because who would have warned Jacob Marley?
I don't know. I mean,
that's a fair point. Because if Marley is anything like Scrooge, then he wouldn't have anybody who's close to him. So no one would have warned him.
But why would you need... So did Jacob Marley not get a visit of the three ghosts because no one warned him? Did he summon the three ghosts for Scrooge?
That's an untold story.
He might have gotten the three ghosts, but
maybe it didn't change
version. In this version, Marley is kind of set up for like, hey, you need to heed the ghosts, or you're going to be stuck here like me. He might not have gotten that simple warning, so he could have just wrote it all off as hallucination that he was seeing.
A line would have been nice for that.
Oh yeah, I agree. I'm just kind of guessing.
Because if he's just the messenger giving a warning of what's to come, it sounds like if he didn't warn him, it still would have come, which you'd think Marley would get it
Maybe Marley was
from.
too damned for redemption.
Yeah, but that I feel like that would be a line. Like right now, it's so it's a
Yeah,
question of why, and we
yeah.
don't even have
Marley.
anything to infer.
Yeah. See, the thing about that, Sprinks, is I think Crimson's right in saying to imply that Scrooge would have had a longer chain. It kind of implies that Scrooge is the worst of the two.
Yeah, but I don't know. It showed things of Scrooge of more connections. I mean, there was the Bell, or at least in this iteration, there's the connection to Bell, the connection to Bob Cratchit, um, other people, his nephew. I don't know unless it's made up, but of those connections, who does Jacob Marley have?
We don't know.
Yeah, does he have family? Does he have someone who's
He could have a
passed?
bigger family. He could have a less family. We don't have anything on it.
My best thing, and hey, this could be a whole writer thing, but it would be more focused and entertaining to an audience to be onto a character with more investments in them than one without. So unless they just, I mean, it could be a big what if, like just swap it to Jacob Marley.
It would be a simple line of, "Heed my warning, for I did not listen myself." Boom. That's simple fix. He had the visits, he didn't listen, and now he's damned. And it doesn't take much screen time or anything. We don't have to learn about Marley's family and his investments. It's just one
I guess
quick
that's true.
line.
Yeah, that's something this version didn't do.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if other
Yeah.
versions do because I don't remember. But rating or reviewing this film, I think that is an issue. That
Yeah,
he's the messenger, and the ghost probably would have visited him in his life.
I do see what you're saying, Springs. Because you are right in the sense of that, like what you said is technically correct, like 95% of the time, and more than that, it's just typically you're going to want to follow the character around with the more connections because in theory all those connections are going to matter and you're going to care about them more as they go through their journey and stuff like that. Marley here would add something that would be important for the world building aspect, or at least clarify something for the world building aspect. While he wouldn't necessarily have many connections, and we don't need a full story, I think a line of dialogue would have improved that situation with regarding him. Um, so I think I'm in agreement. It's definitely a, a minor issue for this film.
Okay, yeah, I can see his line would definitely aid it.
Springs, you're right.
Oh boy, me up to bat.
Go for the home run, buddy.
Hey, that band outside, terrible. Out of
Oh.
tune, out of practice, out of whack. That is bad playing. But then again, I mean, they're out in the cold in London, so
yeah, they're just having some whimsy. Man, that reminded me of like I thought Scrooge was gonna go yell at them because it's Scrooge, you know, he's gonna shout from his window like "shut the fuck up" or whatever passes for "shut the fuck up" in a 1930s film.
Close with your
but
trap.
Slam,
yeah,
slam your yappers.
close with your trap. Yeah. Die for the good of the overpopulation surplus. So, but that reminded me when the kids were screaming, singing Christmas carols at his window, how he went to go get a beating stick.
Those kids were creepy.
I'm like, wow, that's dark, but it's of the times, so I won't judge it too harshly for that. But it's pretty dark from I guess a modern art critic, I guess.
I mean, yeah, it could have been something of, Bob Cratchit being like, "Listen, Scrooge, the band are their instruments," and he goes, "Instruments of torture."
Yeah.
They did not get my consent to hear this vile noise.
I mean, they're across the road from his building. It would definitely be picked up, whereas he's at the restaurant and it's actually disturbing him. But I don't know where the music at the restaurant's being played. I mean, outside, but
it might just be that he's very good at focusing on his work. That does happen sometimes, but I don't know.
I guess it could be the
Well, I mean,
environment too. More comfort in his own building, opposed
could
to
have
a
told
restaurant.
the band guys to stop before, and they just keep doing it. So he's just giving up on his own
That
building
is
area.
true. Could have.
So
Anyway,
yeah,
they
and I
played
agree. Not
terribly,
the
but
best performance.
I guess it makes sense to where they are. I mean, Bob Cratchit's inside and his hands are frozen. These people are standing outside. They can't move the instruments or strings or anything.
Oh, and we don't know how experienced they are, anyways. They could just be very poor people trying anything they can to get money, and even if they barely know how to play, they'll play for money.
Yeah,
So
sure.
they don't even have to be good.
And I
Is
did.
Scrooge's. Sorry, you first.
Okay, I was gonna say I did look it up. They're playing First Noel, and First Noel, first depiction or iteration like found. Well, of course, there's the whole Bible hymns of it, like way back, but the first like song made or what I could find was of 1823, so it would fit in time to when Christmas Carol was created, or where this takes place of 1843.
Ryder, you're about to say something?
Yes. I was going to say, is Scrooge's first line of dialogue, "Are there no prisons?" Or is that
In
his.
response to the poor people need
I did not pick
comfort.
that up.
Yeah, the two guys asking for charity said that there's hundreds of thousands of people in need of comfort, and he said, "Do they not have prisons? Does the union,
Yeah, he goes
whatever?"
on this whole
Yeah,
spiel.
workhouses and everything. But
Yeah. So
when I said I didn't pick it up, I mean I didn't pick up what his first line of dialogue was.
yeah,
I think his first line of dialogue is "Are there no prisons?" which just tells you everything you need to know about the character, pretty much.
yeah. Why do you have to be suffering on the streets when you could just go to prison for comfort? Well, but yeah, I think they did a good job establishing Scrooge as being a Scrooge.
Yeah,
Oh,
his
yeah.
the first exchange with the charity people, I think, pretty much establishes who he is. I think his interaction with Bob Cratchit is more for Bob Cratchit's characterization than it is for Scrooge, but I will say it feels a little repetitive because it's just reinforcing the same information, but it's again more focused on Bob Cratchit's character, which is necessary for the film because Bob is indirectly one of the influences on Scrooge.
Yeah. I mean, he's so cold. He stuck his hands in candle flame.
Yeah, yeah, he did. But Scrooge isn't cold, so Bob can't be cold.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. My limits are your limits. Blah, blah, blah. I really liked. Okay, well, writer.
No, go.
Okay.
You're...
I really liked at around 4:47 when Scrooge pulls out the chair to the two charity workers, and the body language that they both share is really well acted to me. How it really looks like Scrooge pulled out the chair for himself to sit down in, and the charity worker brightens up like the chair's pulled out for him to sit down in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So even though it's not conveyed or talked about, I mean, they both get real close to each other and neither one sits down. But when the action's done, like how they both react to it, I think was really a nice detail of acting.
There's a lot of good elements of visual storytelling in this, where the story is the writing itself is being told through how the actors are portraying their characters.
Yeah, I mean, this is only like a decade after silent films stopped really happening when audio was introduced. So a lot of actors would have been more acclimated to body language acting, which I think can definitely be portrayed in this film.
I
Which
agree.
is kind of cool. I mean, even with Scrooge himself in the past, when he looks younger, his posture is completely different. It makes him look a lot younger than his hunched over, old, cranky self we see in the beginning.
Yeah. Now, I'm no expert on the original written story of Charles Dickens, like to heart. I'm curious, at least for this version of the adaptation, how much of dialogue is stuck exactly out of the book and how much is like creative liberty written.
Yeah, I feel like some of Bob's lines feel like their book. I don't know if they are, but
I think a lot of
the
these lines are
dialogue
book.
feels like book.
Yeah,
Like,
I know the Scrooge lines are book because he says things that matches up to other a good indication to me was if a line was said in this that matched up to another adaptation of Christmas Carol. Like line
yeah,
word
but
for word. Because I'm like, okay,
those
that's
could be
probably
taken from this though too.
Oh,
Kind
I didn't even think
kind
of
of like
that.
Amityville Horror,
Could be referenced.
the one we saw referenced the previous movie, but that doesn't mean the movie copied the book.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say without actually reading the book what is from the book or what is taking homage from an earlier film.
I guess that is true.
Yeah. I think if I recall, the things that differ with the book is it doesn't visually depict the ghosts, which differs from the book. 'Cause I know the book gives lush descriptions of what the ghosts look like.
Yeah, the book isn't the first.
And
The past was a flame, a candle flame, which
yeah,
they
and
try to
Marley is
depict here in some fashion.
yeah, and Marley is like you can feel Marley's presence because of the dragging chain, but you don't really see what Marley looked like at any point.
Yeah,
That's what I thought was cool.
He's just a
because,
voice.
well, he said, Jacob Marley said, "Only you can see me, Scrooge," which
Yeah,
means the audience doesn't get to see him.
Yeah, but that's also just an easy visual save for the time, which is how I picked it up.
I mean, they didn't have to do that. I mean, the
No.
stuff they did with the shadows, the past with the emanating light figure, I don't think they were going for the easy route. I think they went for a creative choice.
The past one is a big question I have. I don't know if that's a still image.
It could be. I like the imagery of it, regardless.
Yeah. I just question if that's just a photo. Or like something set or something with just a light in the background to illuminate the shadow of the past spirit.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how they did it. If it was done in post or if there was some practical or a mix. I don't really know how they accomplished it. I didn't see anything on that on my research.
I just decided to look it up. There's a list of rankings of 18 different iterations of like
Christmas
least
carols?
accurate to most accurate to the book.
Oh, okay.
Scrooge is number 11 on that list.
Ooh,
So
that's pretty low.
kind of, yeah, kind of in the mid range
of 18
for that.
Not even top 10.
Yeah, it's not top 10 for sure. It is one above the Muppets Christmas Carol.
Ooh. And what is this list of, like, made by? To give credit?
Screen Rant. So take it with a grain of salt.
There we go.
I'm curious, see what the most accurate one is. I'm gonna scroll down.
I bet it's one we're not covering.
Well, it's not the 1935 Scrooge.
Yeah, the CGI animated one is actually third.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. Animated short film, 1971 is second, and first is Patrick Stewart's 1999.
Ah, the Patrick Stewart one. Interesting.
Right. Yeah. I don't know who went last, so I will go Sprinks.
Sweet. Hey, it's reminded me of when we covered The Evil Dead, and there's a shot of Scrooge working, and Bob Cratchit's behind him, and you can see it in the mirror of Bob Cratchit going for the coal. And it's picked up later that Scrooge saw him to comment, like, whose coal do you think? Like, you're not paying for that coal, taking advantage kind of thing. From the angle of the mirror being shown of the shot over Scrooge's shoulder, lined up in Scrooge's eyes, he would not be able to see Bob Cratchit. That is just for the audience.
Correct. Because if they did it the correct way, we wouldn't have seen Bob, and we'd be like, what is the point of this shot? We don't see anything.
Well, if they shot it for the time more direct to the look, well, they did it to hide the camera. But the camera would have been the mirror. But if they did it in a way where Scrooge's body blocked the camera behind him, and we saw Bob Cratchit's head above in the mirror look, I think that would have worked. May have looked a little goofy, but at least that would have lined up for Scrooge. But that would have worked for Scrooge to see him.
Yeah. I mean, you can make it a realistic reflection, but it definitely damages the shot that's depicted. Are you seeing this as a flaw or an observation?
I have it neutral because I really do like the shot lined up, but it's not practically accurate. So the shot's real cool, but Scrooge being able to see Bob Cratchit in the instance to pick up what he's doing is not real.
Fair enough.
I do like the character bits that are added here for Scrooge. That Scrooge is so like paranoid and like ever presently watchful of the people that work for him, that he has the mirror set up explicitly to just keep an eye on like his house, the business behind him.
Yeah.
I wish. Was that mirror there in the flashback?
Oh,
that'd
with
be
Belle?
interesting if he added that later once he, after.
I didn't pick it up.
Marley died.
Yeah.
I didn't pick it up either.
That'd be an interesting detail if they did that. But I don't know. Writer.
I quite like, I guess, how intimidated Bob is of Scrooge. We find out why, because Bob really needs the job, but he plays it pretty well, I think, in the sense of he's just trying to sneak the extra coal instead of just nonchalantly going over, which again establishes pretty much what the dynamic of between the two of them are for at least the start of the story.
Yeah, I think Bob is awesome. Bob was the thing I remember, the character, I guess, that I remember the most about this when I pitched this as a Christmas Carol.
I'm in agreement. Bob would be the character I remember the most.
He's just an awesome guy, and I think the actor that portrayed him did great with the facial expressions and body language, everything.
I think the optimism of Bob Cratchit is delightful.
Is what?
Yeah.
The spirit of his optimism.
Yeah. Very good stuff.
His goodwill to men. Which even how poorly Scrooge treats him, he still toasts his health. There's a lot about Bob's character.
Something I wish, and this is a byproduct of this almost being a 100-year-old movie, is I wish I knew how much 15 shillings really was, because he didn't seem completely poor. He could afford to buy a toy boat outside. He was able to get a feast going. We're implied this is enough to get by, but I don't know how poor it is. I wish there was a way to depict how poor he was.
That's interesting.
Obviously, they didn't plan like, oh, what are people 100 years from now going to think? Because that's not how things work.
Crimson, I'm fascinated you didn't look into that. You're the budget box office guy with inflation.
I did, but I don't. The audience doesn't need to do homework. Is what I'm going for. I even looked at what half a crown is because they.
Oh, so you do have the info, is what you're saying.
I couldn't find how much a shilling from 1843 to 2024 is, because it gave me, because there are people that actually still use shillings for some reason. I guess.
I just found it. So.
Oh, all right. Let's hear it. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I just typed it in. I guess it just. I find it funny that it just came up, and I'm assuming people looked it up specifically because of the movie at some point. In 1843, 15 shillings was worth, in our dollars, about $40,000 per year. So about $14.20 per hour, when adjusted for wage inflation for us.
So he got minimum wage.
So he got a week. That wasn't a daily income, right? That was a weekly income.
Yeah. Well, yeah, 15 shillings per week was worth about 40,000 per year.
Yeah, so you said 14
bucks.
Equate.
Yeah.
Well, it's the yearly income that's the same. So it would still be minimum wage, it's just displaced differently, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's under minimum wage technically, but not by much.
He keeps raising them anyways. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird that popped up. Google, you're failing me again.
Yeah. And then Bob Cratchit gets a raise. Don't know how much he got a raise from. What it went to.
Well, now he gets 14 shillings and 3 pence. So.
Oh, is that what he said the raise was?
No, I made that up.
Oh, well, cool.
A pence is the denomination under a shilling. There's a 12 pence, I think. Yeah, 12 pence and a shilling.
You're implying you didn't get a raise, you got a pay cut. Funny.
No. Yeah. Oops. All right. We'll go with Sprint.
Oh, me again. And all this currency talk is just loony toony.
I see what you did there.
Hey, jokes.
Mr. Canadian over here.
Hey. I don't know why I wrote it down. I didn't know if it was a connection or you guys picked it up or something. When the nephew's there, Fred, and he's talking to Uncle Scrooge, and Bob in the back goes, here, 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 4 times. It's then met with Scrooge, not directly after, but I think like a line after. Scrooge goes, dear, 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 dear. And they both say it 4 times each. I didn't know if that's a connection of the people or like you're in an environment so long with someone you pick up their mannerisms kind of thing.
I think Scrooge was being a bit mocking because the here, here, here was to when Fred was saying Merry Christmas and stuff, and here, agreeing with the sentiment, and Scrooge doesn't agree with the sentiment.
Okay, so the matched back of 4 was mocking. I can see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, I would assume it's mocking as well.
A timestamp I have of 1955 is when they chose to speed up Scrooge locking the door to his house. Found that kind of amusing.
Well, it's a huge door. It's massive.
You mean like they sped up the footage?
Yeah, they sped up the footage.
Yeah.
Which is a fix they did back then. So I don't have an issue with it. It was just kind of amusing to watch him.
Watch an old man suddenly move very quickly.
Yeah. I would have just cut it, but they wanted to show him also grab the light to go upstairs.
Yeah.
Instead of just entering the house.
That's something I'll give a little credit to because the timepiece of the movie is the lighting of this film.
Yeah, that's black and white movies for you. The lighting really matters.
Yeah. Lighting a candle and a spotlight comes on.
Yeah. I do love how much they play with shadows in the film, though.
There's a whole character revolving around shadow.
See, even before that, though, they played with shadows very, very well.
Oh, I mean, the grave robbers, boy, oh boy, did they play with the lighting on those guys. Made them very sinister.
Marta, can you give some examples of what you mean?
Oh, sure. There's an imposing shot of like Scrooge's like shadow like profile, like dwarfing Bob. I don't have a timestamp for it. I should have timestamped it. I just thought it would be a general observation. And then obviously you got to play with a lot of them in the house as well. So like Scrooge's shadow on the wall when he's going up the stairs, yeah. And then obviously the Death Eater or future the ghost of future past. No wait, it's just Christmas future. And the way obviously the Ghost of Christmas has no speaking lines, which I am familiar with. The Ghost of Christmas future rarely talks. So I quite enjoyed just the simple pointing and the overhanging shadows, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm with you in agreement on everything in the house.
With the way they play shadows?
Yeah. I saw that as just the back product or the after of using a spotlight to illuminate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see it as like playing with it or to like show like the shadows overlooking Scrooge or larger than him or something like that.
Yeah, well, the intensity of the shadows are there because of the spotlight. You wouldn't be getting the shadows because of the candle.
Oh, okay. I mistake what you mean by play then. Okay.
No, I don't think you did. I'm just my point is it can be both. Is pretty much what I'm saying.
Yeah, no. Shadowing effect definitely could be both. I just saw it as in the house is because of the spotlight. of the time of using the illumination of lighting, but I don't see that as the shadows portraying anything other than that. So it's like an error that's caught up, but they couldn't do much of it because a candlelight would not depict a shadow in that direction from where the candle is. So I see it as an error, opposed to where you said his shadow with Bob Cratchit is like overlooking him, like this huge thing over Bob. That I see more as playing with the shadow effect of what's visually shown.
I see.
So, Spranks, the shadow of him going up the stairs, this is after him closing the door with the speed up thing. Was that an intentional shadow or not?
I don't think it's intent for the film to show something with the shadow, like he's being followed or it's a ghostly presence or the future's like looking at anything like that. I think it's just for the spotlight being used to give more lighting than a candlelight to show Scrooge on the set of the film. And it's just the back product of that spotlight being on him.
I disagree, purely due to the fact of how the frame is shot. They they could have cropped it and focused on him, but they did the whole back wall panel so you could see his shadow on the wall.
And I see that more as just showing how alone he is in a big house.
Okay, Springs, you just by saying that you're admitting that it's intentional, not a mistake.
No,
No,
he's saying
no,
the
the
shot
shot
is intentional to show
to
he's
make
alone.
Scrooge
He's
look
not
smaller
saying
than
the
tighter.
shadow is.
That's what I thought.
Let's go with. I did the speed up thing. We'll go Sprinks.
Again, wow, that. Ooh,
Yeah.
hey. Let's see. At 12:33, when Scrooge, the stick he was going to use to like beat the caroling kids, when he chucks it back, it makes no sound effect. It has no noise.
That is correct.
Because he doesn't beat the window or anything, right?
No, but he like chucks it, kind of tosses it across the room, out of frame. But it's dead silent. How is later with the movie when he's playing the trick on Bob Cratchit and Bob's like gonna punch him, like defending himself, when he throws that one around, even though there's the dialogue and the music playing, there's a little sound effect or like a little noise of the stick actually landing. So there's sound effect for later in the film when it happens, but this one is dead silent.
Yeah, no disagreement on me on that one. Ryder, I guess I've been missing you based off of what Sprinks has been saying, so I guess you're
Yeah, but I'm still getting my points in. I'm still talking
even
here.
though you brought up the shadow thing, and then I brought up the sped up footage.
I will jump to just the nephew because I think the nephew Fred. I like again. It just shows the dichotomy. So he's kind of the nephews because their family kind of is more easily able to laugh off Scrooge's point of view when it comes to life. And obviously during that whole scene, we get the the bah humbug line drop, which is like integral to Scrooge's character in nearly every iteration. But just they're almost. This is not a criticism. I just found it funny that they're almost too opposite of each other aside from being family. And I like the nephew's character, mind you. But you get you it's kind of almost like you can't believe they are from the same family because of how opposite they are.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly shows how detached they are from one another.
Which makes sense because
Scrooge
Scrooge is intentionally, distancing himself.
Yeah, I mean, I liked how even his better self by the end of this, his joyful, merry man self, was still hesitant on going to his nephew's or Fred's place. Almost walked back, knocked, and was considering to walk away. I like how it wasn't a perfect fix of his character. There was still a bit of fear or something else you'd want to read into it.
Hesitancy.
Nerves.
Yeah. My favorite part of the whole sequence is when he's like hesitating to go even to the door before he even walks inside. I do enjoy that because you can get a sense of you get a sharp sense of how nervous he is about it, and plus he also did hear all the jokes and stuff they were cracking about him, presumably because that's what he was being shown by the ghosted presence.
He has
so
all
he
that
knows
knowledge.
he knows what they think of him. So that to me is also an added pressure onto him, which just adds more into like why he is nervous and why he is
Apprehensive.
hesitant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. That really plays well in Scrooge. I think it's dumb that Fred doesn't know who he is when he opens the door. And he goes, "Bless my
Oh,
soul, who's this?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? That's your uncle."
He's not being literal, Springs.
yeah, that wasn't literal. That was him just expressing his surprise.
Oh, it's not.
You thought he was literally?
He was looking at Scrooge in the doorway and said, "Who is
Yeah.
this?"
Yeah, in the sense of like you bring a pet
Who is
over
this?
to
This
someone's
can't be
house.
my Uncle Scrooge. He would never come here.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
that's the type of thing he's going for.
No, that's not
yeah,
what I
and
took from it. But okay.
yeah, and the variation I would use of it is like you bring over a pet over to someone's house like a dog, and then you put on you kind of like fun voice like who's this that sort of thing. That's kind of how I went with it. Not that he sees his uncle as pet, but just the same tone of like you're expressing your surprise and gratitude for seeing someone you didn't expect to see.
Okay.
I guess this brings the question: do you see what we're seeing, or are you
Oh no,
sticking with
no.
he
I
literally
picked
had no idea who that was?
no. I will stick to what I saw it as, but I can understand of like, oh, who's this? Because it's out of character for what Fred knows of Scrooge for Scrooge to do this. So he's like surprised by like, who is this new person kind of thing. Like that's how he took upon the um, Scrooge coming into the room. But I still saw it, first time of being like, Fred, what are you, stupid? Are you blind? Is your uncle? You saw him yesterday.
We'll go with Springs again because I need to read my notes.
All right. From the iterations I've seen, this is the only one that I know of that has like the Lord Mayor of London and the whole British national anthem.
Yes, I agree. I like the sequence with everything else around it. It's very much I don't remember seeing like the grandiose aspect of Christmas that much either. Um, or at least how I guess the royalty or the upper class celebrate it. But what I liked about that was I guess everything else around it. We're seeing bits of how the city celebrates, and I like the way that the film like introduces us to the rest of the city pacing wise, with Scrooge and Bob Cratchit both respectively going home, and Bob, seeing a bunch of kids sliding across the ice and decides he wants to do it himself,
I like
'cause he's
that.
just gonna have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're slowly introduced to how like through them walking home, we then pan away to how the rest of the city is celebrating the holiday. I very much love that. It gives the city character at the time of year,
Yeah. See how
So that for
every
me,
other person keeps Christmas to them.
yeah. So, because obviously the focus of how people keep Christmas is going to be mostly focused on Fred, Bob, and Scrooge. But I really, really love the character the whole city gets by expanding on it in a weird. The only equivalent that I could think of to a movie that we've talked about is how the Batman depicts Gotham. Uh, Specifically, obviously, I'm talking about Matt Reeves, Pat Bet. Um, the Gotham in that's obviously has a very distinct character to it, and all those little bits that we see in such a short amount of time in this film help give character to the world around Scrooge and Bob as they go home. And it's I think one of my more favorite sequences I think I can think of in an older film where they're able to do that so quickly and efficiently, because it's very important how the city celebrates Christmas to help contrast with Scrooge. So good world building as far as I'm concerned, within the scope of the film.
Gotcha. I do like the little, at least it made me chuckle, a little chortle in my throat of the, I don't know, the butler or the servant asking the mayor to give his speech, and his speech is literally one sentence of "Rise for the Queen."
Yep,
Mhm.
it got me to chuckle a little bit too. Um, I guess outside of Bob's like going on the ice, what was your favorite little moment, if you got one, Springs?
Very little moment of what do you mean?
Just seeing how the city celebrates Christmas.
Oh, I think Bob on the Ice. Like he just came out of working for Scrooge, and he just sees kids playing, and he just plays along with them. Well, kind of. He just does the ice once and waves him off and Merry Christmas. And I just like that, like how he's in the community.
Yeah, I would agree. That would be my choice as well. I liked how the adults react too. They all have a bit of a laugh. So,
Yeah. I do have a weird question. Oh, Crimson. I keep stepping on toes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say Crimson. Do you have a favorite moment of all that?
Does the sailors count at the end?
Yeah, they would absolutely.
Oh, the drunkards.
They're absolutely a character, helping to characterize the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean the actual boat scene, not the two guys in the bar. I just thought it was cool how wide-reaching it was. It was a nice addition. As for the banquet scene, during my fact hunting, there's only been 2 versions, at least up to whoever wrote the fact, that had come out with that, and that's this version and the Jim Carrey animated one are the only 2 versions to have the Queen banquet.
Interesting.
And this one was directly for Queen Victoria, even though she wasn't queen yet. I think it was a couple of years later, but this was just to acknowledge her as being a future queen or something.
Well, I get
so
if it's only
real-world implementations.
If it's only in 2 iterations, or adaptations, it would be curious to know if this is a scene in the book.
Yeah, I didn't see anything on that in the facts, but it sounded like it was more for Queen Victoria than of the book, but I don't know.
Okay, because if it's not in the book, if this banquet isn't depicted in the book, then the Jim Carrey one you're saying would probably be a reference and homage to this version then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But can't confirm because I don't know on the book thing.
Gotcha. Interesting. At timestamp 1553, when the kids are like looking into the kitchen of the banquet and the guy's like throwing like, I guess, like day old bread or something to the kids and everything. In the lower left corner, I know it's probably some depiction of the time, like cooking an instrument or something, but it looks like they're cooking turtles.
They absolutely do have turtles. I wrote that down too. Wow, they have turtles. Very fancy.
Okay, was that something of the times? Are those actually supposed to be turtles?
Those are absolutely turtles.
Oh.
And I would imagine they're of the time, because why else would they add that?
All right, they're eating
turtles.
turtles.
I'll look it up. You got me curious.
It caught me so off guard that I just went, it's probably just some, baking device that looks like a turtle or something because of the angle and the quality and everything. But if they're just cooking turtles, that's odd. Maybe maybe that's a royalty food.
Yeah, I mean, turtles were pretty common back then for every use. I mean, they used to collect their shells for stuff, so why waste the meat?
The first thing I see is actually a Save the Turtles publication. The British were severely overfishing them at a certain point in history, so I guess they did.
Wow.
Mock turtle soup was invented from necessity. Turtle soup had become immensely popular in the 1750s after sailors came from the West Indies. So, yeah, it's a delicacy over there at that point.
Interesting.
There you go. Some history.
Yeah, learning stuff. Huh? With the whole cooking stuff, I can't prove anything. I didn't look it up, but I'm fairly certain all the chefs in there were comedic actors. Most of the chefs in there.
Oh, like of the time?
Yeah, I'm not 100% positive on that because they just look like familiar comedic actors that I've seen in similar time period stuff, but I didn't look up to confirm.
I didn't see anything on it, but I don't know.
I mean,
there was definitely a different tone in that kid. Well, sprang so many movies from the 30s. Have you all?
Not many.
Live action ones. Yeah.
But they could have gone on to other things.
There's a lot more whimsy to the tone, Yeah, there's a lot of whimsy to the tone of the kitchen stuff. So, I guess that might have been why I had the thought and wrote it down. But
could be a little more, giving all these other characters a little more lightheartedness, look, and warmth to give more of the cold look to Scrooge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say that's certainly intentional. Let's see. All right, I'll talk about Belle and her integration into
singer?
this film here. Yeah. Suzu, something, whatever her name was.
Who?
It was something like
What?
that. From the movie Belle we covered like 2 years ago.
Okay. Got it.
The Belle in this is interesting. I mean, I think she does a good job of tearing down Scrooge. You can understand why an aspect of him turned him into what he is today. He was quite heavy-handed, and it felt pretty quick.
I agreed.
If it was at the point where she already had a wedding ring, so they were already engaged, and you'd think they would know each other a bit. So it's like, oh, we're done. I heard rumors. I saw this. We're done. No conversation to be had. Obviously, it's a short, old film. There's only so much you can cram in, but
no, it was
a bit rushed.
It's definitely a little bit rushed. I think my favorite part of it though is when Scrooge is about like halfway about to threaten something about the marriage and she just pulls the ring off preemptively.
Mm-hmm. Thinks he was going to get leverage over her, and there was no leverage to be had.
Yeah, I do like that. That part of it I really, really do like. It's just he's about to go into like, hey, I expect this of my woman, and she just pulls the ring off. I really loved that. I think everything else though about the scene is definitely on the rushed end because it's a short film. So they don't really pull any punches. They need to get it all out really quickly. So I recognize it as a product of efficiency, but it's rushed.
I like what was brought up about Jacob Marley given one line to help strengthen. I think if there was one line of Belle saying this isn't the first instance she's caught Scrooge doing something like this would have helped me.
That would have been an interesting way to approach the scene. Like if they approach the scene in general from like she heard that Scrooge is at it again and she's at her wit's end about it, and that's why she's there.
I would have, I think, liked that a lot more for Belle, because to me it played off like this is the first instance of anything like this seeing her, and it's such a large thing. Like she's not giving him a second chance. It broke their marriage kind of thing. Like she didn't give him any recovery or redemption of how he could fix or go about it.
Yeah, the best faith assumption is obviously I think it dumbs down Belle as a character by having this be the first time, because in theory they've been courting each other for a while and all she hears is nasty rumors. You would investigate those rumors before this reached this point, before you got the ring on your finger, you know?
Yeah, but it doesn't really play off like she's here to investigate.
No. Yeah, well, no, she is explicitly here to investigate. At least that's how it came across to me. But it's just because she just wanted to see with her own eyes, kind of thing.
I guess it's interpretive. I didn't see her there to investigate. I thought she was going to visit him and overheard.
That's how I took it.
I saw it as she was fully prepared to. She wanted to see for herself because she had heard all the rumors, and she didn't want to believe it. And then she came in and saw it. Like I feel like if I were to marry our interpretations, she was there to visit him because she was going to ask him about the rumors, but saw for herself that the rumors were true.
I take it on how, I mean, dire the consequence of what occurred of like breaking the marriage, that if it was an investigation and she caught it, I think it would have been more interrupted of the moment rather than waiting for the whole ordeal to finish out before talking to Scrooge.
Oh, I see.
I think it's more shocked and saddened, and then she got to anger versus the rumors are true and interrupting.
I see.
Because it seemed when it's confirmed, with the rumors about it, she sits quietly.
Yeah.
So I just wish it was something said like this is the last straw, or the rumors are, everything said about you is true, and
or like I brushed off little things here and there and gave excuses, but now I've seen it.
Yeah,
confirmed.
It's also the sake for me. It's the sake they're engaged. Like she said yes.
Yeah, they've been together for presumably a while.
Yeah,
at this point.
But that shows that she has no faith in him getting better.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just to expedite his character getting hit there.
It works in the sense, like I said, it's efficient. I just wish it didn't feel as rushed as it is.
The couple that he was talking to before that said, "Are you going to sell us up?" And I'm like, "What does that mean? What does sell us up mean?" I did. It essentially means you're going to make us sell all of our stuff to pay you back. That's what it means. Pretty much put us on the street because we're going to have to sell everything to pay you back instead of the waiting a week to get their funds through their jobs or whatever.
Brutal.
So he just put them on the street pretty much. That's what that was.
What a guy.
Yep.
Yeah, almost irredeemable, I would say.
If only there was some cosmic interference to shift his ways.
And God said unto you, Scrooge, I'm going to send 3 ghosts to your house.
Did Jacob Marley jump out a window?
That's what it looked like.
Okay.
And then close it.
He can float.
Can he?
I don't know. I don't know the rules of ghosts.
We don't see him.
Yeah, we don't see him. He's just, the window's open and he's gone.
And then he closes it. Or the wind closes it, I guess. Whichever. Yeah, he just walked through the window. Or flew through the window, whichever interpretation. Instead of going through the door that he entered in.
Huh, okay.
And it would be cool if the ringing bell thing was a reference to Marley. Like it was a thing they did to each other, like rang for a long time. Or if they made it into like a code and he's like, that's what Marley used to do. What? And then you hear him.
And then it's revealed to be Marley.
It'd be cool to have some personal tie to the bell other than it's just a very long bell for some reason.
It's just the haunted jingle bell.
Lots of angels were made. That's all I'm saying.
I like the detail that he actually checks to see if someone's at the door by looking out the window.
Yeah, through the window.
Oh yeah. I'm going to ask. He sees a face in his door. What was the face that he saw in the door?
That's Jacob Marley.
Presumably Marley. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's the only instance we do see of him. All right.
Yeah, that is a discrepancy for the audience.
And that's from the book. When Scrooge arrives home, he sees the face of his dead past partner, Jacob Marley, on his door knocker.
Interesting.
So they went with the adaptation of the book reference over their own creative choice of making them not visible to the audience later. It's a little discrepancy there.
Ooh, that's a little problem then if the whole only you can see me, but we see him.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a discrepancy there.
At least with their vision, I guess, that they were claiming that they have for not showing anything about Marley.
Yeah.
This is kind of a typical thing of more villainous archetypal characters like Scrooge. Animals don't like him when he's walking home. I think it's like 1920. Timestamp 1925. The dogs are barking at him or something. Then he's
scared the wits out of you.
Yeah.
He's got this aura around him.
He just exudes pure villainy for the last night.
Yeah. Something I didn't really understand was when Scrooge was in his house and it looked like he was looking around for something. And then he saw the ropes that looked like a ghost in front of him. I didn't really know what he was doing. It sounded like he was ready to go to bed.
He was spooked.
He looked like he was searching for something.
He's making sure he's safe.
I think genuinely because his reaction to the face he saw on his door, he felt the need to search his house. That's how I interpreted it. Because he was spooked by that face, so he started looking around just to kind of make sure that he was by himself first.
Okay, I guess I could see that. Go ahead, Spring.
Oh, okay. A detail I really do like about, I guess, what they could do and pull off in the 30s for this is the depictions of the past, present, and future all have a distinct look of the border. How the past has this light rimmed border of lens around it to show it played off to me more memory than Scrooge actually being present in the past to see what has occurred. So very like dreamlike memory look. and then the future has this darker rimmed border around it of the lens, shadowing the whole look. So I did very much like that detailed portrayal shown.
Yeah, and the present didn't really have a border.
No.
I mean, did he go places, or was this all dreams? Because every time he was in his bed by the end of it.
The present, he went places, I would say. He was standing outside Bob Cratchit's house.
Well, how's that proof that he's out of bed? Because he wasn't in his house in past.
Oh,
either.
I see what you're playing. Was this everything that occurred in his head?
Yeah, in his sleep. Was he in bed the entire night, or was this some weird metaphysical push to go elsewhere?
Someone pulled him out and made him astral project or something.
Yeah,
because of his physical presence in other locations and how he's seeing what we're not really given any reason to not believe what we're seeing isn't true when we go to visit other places. I'm inclined to believe what he saw was real. So he is seeing variations thereupon, I suppose.
The past is the only one I don't know if he's physically moved at all. He doesn't comment on anything of the past, right? We just see the whole past, and then he wakes up in the bed.
He was standing along the wall with.
He was watching Belle celebrate with her new family.
Over his head, and I think he did say one line, but the past was so short compared to the other two on anything.
Yeah, I think the past we see Belle kind of celebrating with her new family, and he says he can't bear it anymore, and then that's kind of what he's just whisked away, I think.
Did you guys count how many kids she has?
Holy
no,
cow.
I didn't bother. I just cracked the joke at saying she got busy.
And she didn't age much either.
No.
She looks the same.
17.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's
there are 17 kids.
The implication is that that's only a couple years after they broke up, even though it's impossible given the amount of kids that she has.
She could have married into the family.
I think so. I mean, it's the age of the kids too.
That's true.
There are so many there's no way those are 9 months apart, unless there was multiple triplets and twins that she was birthing.
That's true.
I mean, she's in a wealthy state. They could have been adopted too.
Could be. Oliver Twist is in there somewhere.
I think it could be.
Annie may as well be in there as well.
Bruce Wayne? Oh wait.
Some of the orphans. So, yeah. Belle did well for herself later.
Yeah.
Should there have been a thing with her at the end?
No, I don't think that was necessary. It's mostly Belle's purpose to me was showing what he could have had and lost, and that he cannot get back. So that's something he needs to move on from.
Yeah.
Kind of a little bit what I got from that whole interpretation, because I don't know. The most I would want, if I were to have an interaction between Belle and Scrooge, all I would want is Scrooge acknowledging that he's sorry that he hurt her and he's happy that she's happy. That's pretty much what all I would want from that interaction.
And it plays into the aid of Fred, his nephew, of, if you don't wise up, you'll lose him too. So
Who's
it's
Fred?
His nephew.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was like, I don't think he really cares about Fred. But.
Well, no, but showing Belle first to then go to Fred with the memory of what's occurred to Belle already. Like, Belle's gone and there's no recovery because it actually shows her moved on with a new family. With Fred, it's like the same thing could occur if, you continue down the path you're on, you'll lose the ones you care about.
More.
That's what they were going for. I wish they showed him actually caring about Fred.
No, he
I didn't really see
he goes in person.
I didn't really see a parallel.
Yeah. The parallel is something, I think the parallel is there, but you have to read into it, if that makes sense. It's not plain and obvious at face value what's going on there.
No, it's not
which I'm
nothing
fine
like.
with, but
I don't want to lose my family like I lost Belle or something. I don't really see a connection with Belle and Fred.
No, it's just the connections is very simple at its base, in that they're both people that Scrooge has cared about at one point in his life, and he's already lost one, and he's going to lose the other by virtue of the fact of how often he works to push them away.
Yeah, that's why I think it's a big thing for him to decide on Christmas Day when he wakes up to go to Fred. To be a better person for him. At least
Pick him
in
up
this
on his
version.
invitation, yeah.
Yeah, there's something I don't care for in this version of that Christmas Day realization morning. Yeah, the whole Bob Cratchit stuff.
That it was kind of sped run.
Yeah, kind of. I really don't like the line in this iteration that we see of him. I keep saying iteration.
And I'll be a second father.
Yeah, I'll be a second father. He's never met Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim's never met him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's very much a rushed aspect of it.
We don't see them being like, where's the goose from? Oh, it's from Scrooge, and the whole family appreciating him. It's just, we get the Bob Cratchit, you'll get a raise, yippee. But
what's interesting about this version is that Scrooge is already a changed man, like halfway through the Ghost of Present. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like So the interesting thing for me here was that Scrooge, I guess in comparison to other iterations, because I guess I'm comparing it to that, Scrooge is very much more holds on, like, to his what he thinks of the world. It doesn't really affect him until he gets to the last ghost. So I guess for me it was interesting to kind of see that change in character much earlier on than I would have expected from other iterations.
Yeah, like with the introduction of Present, he's like, I've learned my lessons and I would like to learn more from you. Like I feel like a lot of the other ones is like, I don't want anything to do with you, Ghost. I'm done with this. But here, yeah, he's like, if you have more to teach me, teach me.
Yeah. So for me, that's a very interesting, I guess, take and interpretation on the character, because I'm not used to that when, I guess, in a Scrooge depiction.
Yeah, it really plays that he believes what the Christmas past has shown him, opposed to the other ones that go bah humbug. Like, I already know what's occurred to me.
Yeah.
Like, just kind of a stubbornness of like, there's nothing I can change about my past. Look, that other versions do.
Yeah, this one's a softer Scrooge.
Maybe a wiser Scrooge.
Yeah. How do you in past? He just kept his voice reminded me of him. His kind of silhouette kind of reminded me of him. It was interesting.
Reminded you of who?
It's John Goodman, right?
Oh, Present reminded you of John Goodman?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
his voice sounded like silhouette. It's kind of my mind went to.
I as a joke, I wrote gluttony as a sin, one of the deadly sins upon looking at him. But yeah, I can definitely see why you'd see John Goodman.
I could see John Goodman being cast as Present. That would be not bad.
Yeah, that would be good. John Goodman from like 15 years ago, not today.
Oh, Flintstones John Goodman?
Yeah, I suppose. Was that 15 years ago? That was like the 90s then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a little older. But I'm just like in my head thinking.
Yeah.
Like, you probably don't mean 10 Cloverfield Lane John Goodman.
No. Oh, brother, probably.
Okay, that's not that far off.
No. Is it? I don't know timelines anymore.
Oh, brother to Flintstones?
Yeah.
I don't know. That might be less than a decade. Maybe.
Well, yeah, I would imagine that's probably less than a decade. All right. Sprinks.
Let's see here. It's interesting in versions where Bob and Mrs. Cratchit call their own son Tiny Tim.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to bring that up.
Yeah.
Is his first name Tiny? Tiny?
I'm just curious if it like sometimes it does it and sometimes it doesn't. And this is one where they do call him Tiny Tim. And it just seems sad that your own parents call you that.
Well, you're Tall Sprinks and I'm Wide Crimson, it's just descriptors.
You made those up today.
Names.
You made those up right now.
No, we've called each other that for years.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Like, I mean, it helps the character, but
families can absolutely give each other like little nicknames like that because Tiny Tim on its face value isn't offensive. At least I don't find it offensive.
No, I don't think it's
No,
offensive.
it helps
So,
that he is the
It does,
youngest.
and it does vary like from family to family whether that sort of like nickname calling it becomes toxic. But I'm gonna be honest with you, Bob Cratchit does not come across to me as a toxic father
No.
at all. It
No.
always comes across as a term of endearment. So
But maybe again for
I
me, it could have been a little line of like help of like, oh, since you were born, we've called you Tiny Tim because you were something. Like
Don't know if it's
maybe
necessary.
I don't know. I see it
maybe,
more
but I
played off
don't.
the character's name of the book to the audience node. Like, okay, that is Tiny Tim, but being called that as a nickname from your parents, I can see it's not cruel, but I see it more as a tool used to identify the character of who it is versus a more sincerity of the name of the person in world.
Um, how would you would how like if we're gonna keep I would want to keep the family calling him that because it seems like a non-toxic nickname to call him. How would you want to introduce it so it sounds more diegetic
If the kids called him Tiny Tim, and he like kind of
rather
like
than
he
the
didn't like
parents?
tell him to stop, but he was like kind of like shrugging off like, okay, guys, and the Bob or the mom saying, well, we've you have been the youngest, or you were such a small baby when you were born that that's what we've called, like some kind of explanation to that,
How
which
does that come up though?
well, that's what I said.
That's
If
not
the other
a
kids called,
natural
like
thing.
his siblings called him that.
The siblings calling him that I would be fine with. I think if I were to do a natural dialogue response to the parents, it wouldn't even be like
Or
because
the
I don't
mom
need
could
them to
call it
give me.
first, and then the kids like
Yeah.
mock him for it, and then they're like, "No, no, leave your brother alone," and then explain it that way. That way, it's said first by a parent.
I don't like I said I don't think I'd want an explanation, but I want it to keep it. I want it more diegetic, I guess, because if they're all calling him that and they're okay with it, like even if the mom says, I guess the most, because trying to think about how I would want her to give it a backstory without explaining a backstory, I think what I would want her to say is, like I said last time, all you need to do is grow a bit taller.
Yeah, it
That
could
would
be
be
that.
like good enough. That would be good enough for me. That would be the closest I'd want to get to an explanation because I think the family dynamic itself would be self-explanatory.
And I think there are some versions. The reason to bring it up, I think there's versions where the family just call him Tim, but the Christmas present calls him Tiny Tim.
Yes, that I'm familiar with as well. The Chris goes to Christmas present calling Tiny Tim.
So
Okay.
just a little line thing, but because again, not cruel at all of Bob Cratchit, especially this version of Bob Cratchit.
I have a question on how they depict things here. So we got Tiny Tim singing, right? Is that where
Hark
I'm
the
at?
Herald.
No, that's not
Yeah.
the part I'm at. Never mind. Different part. There's a montage after the Uncle Scrooge riddle of Christmas stuff,
Yeah.
and we get present in the fire at the end of the montage.
Oh yeah.
And I was like,
Laughing like a demon.
so was all of this through Scrooge? Because we see Scrooge looking at Bob's place, but all this other stuff, we don't see him interact. It's just scenes. So I didn't know if that was purely audience or if that was through Scrooge because
Oh,
we
I
never
see what
see
you're saying.
Scrooge interact, look,
Or comment on
there's
it.
there's nothing. So I didn't know if that was an audience montage or Scrooge was actually a part of all that.
If it's the Ghost of Christmas present, I'm inclined to believe that it was probably all of it, but it would be weird because it makes no comment on it at all. So I think it's up to interpretation.
I would play into it being after the Bob Cratchit thing that it would be seen by him, because that explains why he goes to Fred, like more knowledge onto him of how Fred and everyone else feels about him, which I think adds to his hesitancy.
Oh yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Because you have Tiny Tim sing, and then we get a pan of other houses with silhouettes of people, and then a sky view of the town, and then you get little scenes of people doing Christmas stuff, and then you get to Fred's place. So I didn't know if
it's not
you saw all that stuff
directly shown, but I think going off of the touch my robe and they're outside the house looking in, that looking at Fred laugh with the riddles and everything would be still with the presence of Christmas Present. So I think those would be hand in hand of how it goes about showing Scrooge.
Right.
That's where I lean. But I do think Christmas Present in this one, laughing in the fire, is very devilish looking.
I might have laughed on that, but yes, I agree. It was very, very much not it was very much a hero, non-hero kind of typical look.
Yeah. They didn't exactly state it in this one. They hint at it, but Christmas Present dies. Right? Like in the book, like in versions in the books, as soon as Christmas Present's done and they goes to the future, the present dies.
I don't. They didn't really depict that here. If that's
No.
that happens.
I was gonna say this one isn't really shown that way.
I can see that as a variation of the story. Absolutely, Ghost. With how deathly that Ghost of Christmas Future looks, it wouldn't surprise me that he makes his entrance sometimes by killing the present ghost.
Oh, that would. Ooh, I haven't seen a version of that, but that would be cool. If future kills present upon his arrival.
Yeah, because the present is now the past.
Yeah. Which is why I said they hinted, because present brings up like has more than 18,000 siblings. Or sorry, 1,800.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
1,800 siblings.
Yeah, I was confused what that meant.
Oh, you
I have no idea what it means either.
Oh, you both don't?
No.
He has a sibling for each year. So this is
1840s?
This is 1843, so he's the 1,843rd sibling.
Well, I mean, there's the stuff in
AD
and BC.
Yeah, I don't think that helps, unfortunately. I understand what the homage is attempting to be, if that's true, but I think that just makes it more confusing.
Yeah, because 0 wasn't the start of civilization.
But it was at the start of Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
What? 0's not the start of Christmas, is it? I've never heard that.
No, it's not.
I'm getting into a line here. I don't want to cross into things that could be complicated or like a territory.
It's not that complicated. Are you leaning in towards when Christ was born?
Yeah.
Christ was born in BC, so it would still be inaccurate, unfortunately, because AD refers to after the death of Christ. So on a timeline, and I'm just guessing because I don't actually remember. I saw it once, but I don't remember. Christ would have been born around 30 BC, thereabouts, and then you have AD starting when he's dead.
Yeah. Before Christ, after death, all that. But now it's BCE and whatever.
Yeah. Before Common Era, after Common Era, I think.
Yeah, that's
on a more, I guess, in-depth level. I like the idea behind the homage. It just makes it more confusing because if that's true, there would be a present born every second and a present dying every second.
Well, the present isn't for every second of all time. It's for Christmas Day.
Oh, okay. So you just think that there would be...
It's the ghost of Christmas Present.
Okay.
So when the depiction of Christmas Present is over, to go on to the future yet to come, that's when they pass.
I see. Okay. I think it's a cool attempt at an Easter egg. I don't think they stuck the landing.
Yeah, I guess that's... I feel like if that was what they were going for, they would have said specifically 1,842 siblings, or whatever.
Okay. I'm surprised that neither one of you knew that.
I'm not convinced if it is what it is.
The siblings referencing the years?
I think a lot of versions of Christmas Carol touch that.
The sibling aspect?
Yeah.
I don't, but who knows? I might be remembering stuff wrong again.
I don't remember it either.
Audience, let us know. What do you think?
Alrighty, we'll go with the writer.
All right. I think I quite like just explicitly talking about the riddle that Fred gives. I very much enjoy the kind of lead up to it because it's clearly like an inside joke almost because it's not really a riddle because everyone already knows at a certain point.
Yeah. An animal, rather a disagreeable animal, a savage animal, an animal that grunts and growls and talks and lives in London.
Wow, you wrote it all down.
Yeah,
I did.
yeah.
I didn't write
it's-
their answers.
Yeah, because the answer's obvious, but I like that they all celebrate and laugh together. It's a tiny bit of note just to kind of show how regular that whole group is together as far as holidays and among other days that they probably all get together.
Yeah, they were all spouting out a bunch of nonsense and then uniformly said, Ebenezer Scrooge. So, well, I'll talk about the grave robbers. It's an interesting depiction because I didn't really know the first time I saw this what was being depicted. I thought that they chopped up his body and put it in bags.
Oh goodness!
Jesus Christ!
Okay, Crimson, I gotta ask: is this when you first saw this Scrooge? Was this your first Christmas Carol you've ever been introduced to?
No, this is not my first one.
Okay.
Because the previous scene was in front of a courthouse or some building, and people were celebrating that someone died, and then he's like, "Where am I?" And then we cut to people with bags. I'm like, "Oh, he's in the bags. They killed him or chopped him up." So I was like, "Oh, okay, that's where he is. He's in the bags." No, these are people that looted his residence, and then we see later they did also take his body with them as well.
Wow, dark.
I mean, that's the kind of the way they. I'm not saying that's what they were going for, but the way it was cut,
it's definitely paced that way. I'll grant you that. But
I
admit I never saw that.
Where am I? And then boom, people with bags and a sinister location.
Yeah, I got pretty early that they were grave robbers. I did not think they were like body snatchers.
Yeah, just selling valuables to a fence.
I got his teeth. You want them?
I mean, the darkest bit of it was the lady saying she took the shirt off his corpse.
Mm-hmm.
And literally robbed him naked into his grave.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then something with his grave. I was surprised on how small that tombstone was.
Who's going to pay for it?
Man. Well, him.
Actually, that's a great question. It never says where his wealth went, but I guess it's not that important.
Yeah, they just guessed in his business, but that wasn't confirmed.
Yeah, but his only employee is Bob Cratchit, so did it all go to him?
Well,
no,
just because he works there doesn't mean he owns the business.
The court. Yeah, it would have been seized by the court.
Yeah.
So it would have gone to the government, sadly.
Sadly?
Well, sadly, because Bob needs it more.
Well, that's true, but...
Yeah. Yeah, so that little plaque on the ground was a little odd for a person of his status and self-importance. He's a selfish person. You'd think he'd give himself an extravagant burial site.
Well, if he gave it to himself.
I mean, that's what you do.
Well, do you think Scrooge wrote even a will?
I don't think so. He doesn't come across to me as the person who would, even though the bit of the will that I think he would have done is about where his finances go and why, but I don't even know if I have enough to want to believe that in the sense of he doesn't strike me that he cares much.
No, I would see Scrooge more of the pirate sense. He'd bury or store his valuables kind of thing.
Try to be the next undead dungeon boss with all his treasure.
Knowing upon his death arrival kind of thing.
I mean, yeah, I can see him getting buried with his wealth or something, but just no tombstone of any significant visual.
Yeah, I don't think Scrooge would pay for it.
That's true. He might not, considering how stingy he is of his wealth.
And this future depiction is one that never was visited by ghosts. To continue down that timeline path. or possibly never listen to the ghosts.
What do you mean?
Like, the future yet to come is of Scrooge not listening to the ghosts or never being visited by a ghost. That's why everyone's so joyous and robbing him and all this lackluster on his life.
Mm-hmm. And I did like the detail where he asked future, is this the future or is this a potential outcome? I did like that he was thinking like that.
Asking if this is real or if this is just a potential. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I will jump back to, I guess, this Scrooge being a little more lighter, like not being as hardliner in his beliefs. I like that he admits to being envious to Present when he's like observing how, despite their lack of wealth, how happy Bob Cratchit and his family is, even with all the health problems around Tiny Tim and the others.
Yeah, he scoffed and Present's like, laugh.
Yeah.
No, I envy it. Yeah, that's good.
I like
something that's for this more lighthearted Scrooge than I think the other version.
Yeah, it's definitely much, I think, one more for this Scrooge than it is for the other ones, for sure. It wouldn't work with the other Scrooges, considering how hard-line they tend to be.
Yeah. I like that this Scrooge's shift in personality to become better is met with the Presence reusing the same lines against him to decrease the surplus
a little
population.
On the nose. I liked Present saying it, but Scrooge saying
he didn't
using my own words.
Yeah, he didn't need to say that. You're using my own words.
A little on the nose. Didn't leave like trust in the audience for remembering that. It was like, remember?
Well, yeah, it didn't really play into it definitely played to the audience sake of like, oh, don't you remember? But it aids more of Scrooge remembering that he said it. And it didn't like just go over his head.
I mean, his facial expression would be enough.
Yeah.
But it's not bad. It's there. It's just a little like,
should have been a show, not
in
tell.
Your audience.
Yeah. If I were to have him comment on it, and I would just say that was cruel of you, and then you could just retort back with whatever you'd want Present to say to that, or like just as you have been, or just as you are, or something like that effect.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want him to say like, using my own words against me. That was too much. But I would want him to comment on it.
And I do like how snippy Present is. I mean, I'm heavily paraphrasing what he says, but it's essentially, in heaven, you're as worthless as you see the poor here. That's pretty much the sentiment he made, and I thought that was pretty good. That was a good point to be made.
Most versions I know of Tiny Tim passing is just the stool and crutch. I don't know if I've seen another version where it shows Tiny Tim's actual dead body opposed to this one.
Oh, like because we would go up and visit him. That makes sense.
Yeah, but
I mean, Present even says, "I see a stool with a crutch in the corner" or whatever. But I can't think of a version where Tim's dead in bed.
Opposed to this one
either. Yeah, I think.
It just seemed a darker note. I mean, it seemed a little darker note on that stance, but boy, did it go with. I mean, Tiny Tim. This is a quick bit movie to get to like points. So Tiny Tim like passing was fast in pacing. However, the portrayal of Bob Cratchit's sorrow over the death of his son really hits home.
That's solid. He tries to keep a good face around his family and stuff, and that little tiny breakdown before he enters the
Tim's on the staircase. Yeah, I ate that shit up. That is like great visual storytelling. I love it.
I like the difference of this movie, that it plays more into what Bob Cratchit feels opposed to the story of Tiny Tim passing, which other versions tackle more.
Tiny Tim isn't that much of a character in this one, I do agree it's more of Bob centric, which was kind of my thing with Scrooge, liking Tim so easily. I I wrote, I don't know where my notes are for that, but something along the lines of why does he care so much right now about Tiny Tim? Because he didn't really witness that much of Tiny Tim. He sang a song.
Well,
I don't know.
if he was outside the whole time they ate that goose and they devoured that goose, he's been standing outside watching that family for a while.
That was another thing I wrote down. Did the audience get the time jump, or did Scrooge get the time jump?
I don't know. He's still standing outside. I think that was just the audience.
Hard to say for certain.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would want to change a little bit about, and it's not, and this is just a personal thing, so this is not an objective issue. I think the only thing I would want to change about Bob's slightly breaking down on the staircase on his way to see Tiny Tim is I think I'd want his wife to be there. So like they keep it, so it's implied that they both keep up a strong front for the kids, you know, and then they, you know, in his moment, like, you know, private time or weakness, she comforts him, and then he goes up on his own, that sort of thing.
Okay,
Granted, she's
I
not.
definitely prefer Bob by himself there, but if she comforted him in the hallway or something and then went back to the kids, I guess that would be all right.
Yeah, the idea is that it would imply that they both give a strong front for the kids. So like she knows how he really feels, so he follows them into the empty hallway, and he breaks down a little bit, and then he, you know, she comforts him, and then she goes back to comfort the kids, and we still get him alone in the hallway, like trying to gather himself again. So we get like it wouldn't really be doing much more than just showing the caring and loving family that they already are. It would just be reinforcing the aspect and the family dynamic a little bit more. I do love it though. Like I said, that's just a personal thing for me of what I would want to do.
And I like that the boat came back. I think it was the first thing you see after that cut the cake transition, which I thought was pretty good, especially for this time to do like a creative cut like that. I like that. But you see them put the boat on the shelf in the background, and once we find out like Tim's past.
Yeah,
good consistency.
It's good detail. There was a weird thing I couldn't. It kind of answered it, but I don't know how you two picked it up. At an hour, 2 minutes, and 20 seconds ish, when it transitions into like the next scene, I think away from the Cratchits of the future, the inner part of Scrooge fades away, but the shadow stays. So that conveyed to me that the shadow of Scrooge isn't him.
In the future thing?
Yeah. Like the inner part
how they
of him is looking, but there's a shadow of him on like a wall. But there's a point where that fades, but the shadow stays. Like the shadow doesn't fade.
I think that was just more of a creative thing because every time he turns his head, the shadow matches. So I don't think it's the future shadow. I'm pretty sure it's.
Oh, do you think it's an error then? Oh, just
if
time
anything,
of the film?
Yeah, because if it wasn't him, why would they sync up the shadow turning when he turns his head? That's just, it wouldn't make sense.
Okay, and that should have been edited better.
I mean, if that's what they want, maybe they wanted that visual of him fading and the shadow staying. We don't know what their intent was. It doesn't have to be an error. It could just be an inconsistency with the how they viewed it.
That's true. That goes up for the interpretation of it from the viewer.
Yeah, and you're implying that it's an error, and I'm saying we don't know if it's an error.
Yeah, but I think of your answer has swayed me into thinking it's an error now.
Okay.
Because the hand comes down as a transitional usage of going to black, but they kept it for a bit. But
you're not talking about the transitions for the future taking him to a different place, right? I thought you were talking about the turning head bits that were.
I'm talking about at that timestamp, Scrooge's inner head that we see of his face fades away, but the black shadow on the wall of him does not and stays, which indicated to me that they're two different presence of Scrooge. At least for that scene.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
So if the transition would have just been easier, or they just used a fade effect, which they've done multiple times with just a black reel to fade to black, it would have saved it.
Unless this is the effect they wanted.
True, which was my initial question to begin with, of like, where does it come, like, what did you interpret it to be?
I interpreted it as a creative choice. Inconsistent with their depiction of what the shadow was.
Because it's intentionally delayed, I'm gonna assume that it's a creative choice. Because they clearly fade him away before the black shadow. And it's a long second that it lingers.
Yeah.
So
quite noticeable.
Do you guys know what a half crown is?
It's a currency.
Yeah, kind of. It's 5, I guess, shillings. So he was gonna give the kid 2 shillings and 6 pence. So there you go. Got a good idea. He's gonna pretty much double how much he was gonna give him for the turkey if he got there within the time frame. And I don't think that turkey was twice the size of Tiny Tim. I don't know.
No.
I think he was a little exaggerated with that.
yeah, I mean, I'll go one further. I don't think that turkey made it to Bob Cratchit's house.
You think
how
they just
poor
stole
that
the
kid looked?
turkey?
Possibly.
He got paid in advance. The kid looked poor. I don't see
He had the food. He's out and about Christmas morning by himself. I mean, that plays a bit. Which is kind of my nick to subjectively, I'll say. A nick of subjective, like there's no follow-up with the Cratchits.
Yeah, it would be interesting to have seen a reaction. I wrote that down as well. I would have liked to see their reaction to getting a turkey randomly. Though obviously that's all to feed into the effect of Scrooge playing a bit of a prank on Bob when he's at work. Like he's still pretending to be the, Scrooge.
It's being very giddy and trickery.
I mean, everything we've seen has been through Scrooge's POV, presumably.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying I need to see it. Well, no, okay, that's not true. We do see some of Bob's stuff on his own without seeing Scrooge.
Right. No, I guess that's right. Walking down the streets and stuff. Fair. That's right.
Yeah, we see Christmas morning of Scrooge going to work as if nothing's changed. Because at that point, nothing has changed for the Cratchits.
And I like Scrooge when he's pretending to be grumpy, that he can't help but smile at himself. Which is risky.
I do like him being giddy with himself.
Because presumably, Bob could see his reflection in that mirror, because Scrooge could see him earlier. So, but Bob didn't look. That's fine. But I think it was a good payoff for his views on Bob and everything he's gone through. It was nice. And then Bob about weaponing up for the assault of Scrooge.
Grabbing his feet stick. Yeah,
I found that pretty amusing. Oh,
it's cool detail. It's just interesting that the shadow of the future, the Christmas future, physically could be grabbed. Like Scrooge actually grabs him.
He grabs Present too. Like he grabs his robe.
Well, yeah, but Present's not a shadow.
Oh, I see what you mean.
The shadow could be captured from an invisible being.
Oh, and Scrooge can see the invisible being?
It's like you could see Marley.
So our viewpoint on it is the shadow of the invisible being that Scrooge is grabbing?
Presumably. I'm not going to say yes or no. But there's an option.
I saw it as Scrooge grabbing a shadow. And I went, wow, he has powers. That's wild.
This is also like a dream state or something else otherworldly happening. So, I don't know.
Crimson, you got a lot of I don't knows.
Because we don't get the answer. You want me to make something up?
No, just where do you stand? What do you believe it to be?
I took it at face value that he just grabbed the shadow.
Okay.
But there's alternatives that I could also see. That's making my points.
Real scientist amongst sorcerers.
I like to look at different avenues. I mean, I'm usually the harshest critic with magic systems on things we cover, anyways.
That's true.
Yeah, that checks
Wow,
out.
that's a whole new thing to look at. What is the magic system of Christmas Carol?
I mean, for me, it's just that
that could have
he's
been
able
rhetorical.
to physically interact with the ghosts, so I was okay with him interacting with the ghosts.
Could have been rhetorical.
Yeah, well,
funny. I mean, even like a religious magic system, but there's not really any rules we have established here to what the ghost cannot do. So it's not something they can really break, because we don't even know if they're real in a physical sense. Could all be in his brain.
Could be.
For all we know, Scrooge could have had a stroke last night. And
Ooh, that also could be.
Come out a different man. So
this is his 2 seconds of going into the light.
And darker.
Yeah. Ryder, you're up.
Sure. Let me check my notes. Is it? Did Scrooge figure out that it was his body that they were talking about? Because it kind of feels like I don't know. It kind of feels like they undermined the reveal of the grave a little bit, because it was so obvious that it was he who was dead. Like, we hear them talk about his name. They say his name right at the front of the courthouse square.
No,
they don't.
Never say his name.
Okay, but he would still recognize the sheets around his bed.
It's
the
easy,
shirt that he died in.
I think he's just in constant denial.
He's got a good idea, but it's not confirmed to him until the grave.
It's kind of implied that he's like he has a heavy suspicion. I was just curious if it was bad, I guess, that it wasn't as obvious as it was.
If that lady took his head out of the bag and he still goes, "Who is this man?"
Well, then he's like Fred.
Yeah, and then, like I said, I don't have a huge issue with it. It's more of just I was just curious about your levels on it. So
I just think he's in denial. It's pretty easy to pick up, but he's just scared of.
Yeah, if he was in denial the entire time, I can sort of buy that.
Especially since the future doesn't speak. Like, there is no answer. There's no clarity of what's going on.
I would have liked to know what Scrooge thought his future was going to be. I mean, we never get that.
Like, before the thought of seeing the future?
Yeah, I mean, even before the ghosts. Like, what did he expect life to be after his death? Was this unexpected? I mean, it seemed unexpected to him. But it would be nice to establish how unexpected it was to him. Because if he thought, oh, I'm just going to be buried and people are going to be neutral about my death, then seeing everybody hate him, rob him, that would be kind of harsh. But we don't have that to compare. We just have, oh, well, he's been robbed. Obviously, that's a bad thing. I think it would have made it better.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if that's something that's needed.
I don't know if it's required, but I think if it was added, it would be better.
It's also into Scrooge. Do you think Scrooge actually is looking to his future?
I guess that's up to each person to determine. Probably not. I think he's just coasting on life at this point.
Yeah. Huh. That's where I see more of Scrooge.
Ryder, you're saying something there?
Yes. I was saying I don't really see Scrooge as a particularly ambitious character. So I'm kind of in agreement that he's just kind of coasting through life.
Mm-hmm.
And he just happens to hate Christmas.
Yeah, just happens to hate Christmas. Yes, he cut his nose while shaving. It was an interesting little addition. I don't know why it was really added.
I don't know.
It gives him
kind of just ate up screen time.
Yeah, it kind of it emphasizes the long nose that he traditionally has.
Oh.
Did you notice that he has his nose got a little bit longer?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he kind of put a Band-Aid like upwards to kind of hold it out.
Interesting.
That's how I took it. It was like, oh, that's cool. I liked how they did that more naturally in this. He just didn't have a long nose up until this point.
That would also explain why he got a cut on his nose shaving. As far as visual
I just saw it
reference.
as, very quick. He wants to be done and get out, even though it looks like he's changing clothes like 3 times before he leaves.
He's in a rush, so it makes sense that he would cut his nose. But I do like
visual
that
reference. Okay, that did make it more worthwhile, I guess. Having some intent behind it. I would like to see how much money he's dishing out. Because the maid, he gives a coin, she looks shocked. Could it be a shilling? Could it be more? I don't know. The coin he gave to the guy with the turkey, he looked astonished with how much he just got paid there. So it would have been nice to see how much he's giving.
Also, the fact that he just has coins. Like these clothes, he just has them on him. He's not grabbing a coin purse or anything.
Yeah.
He's just walking around with loose change.
Who would dare rob Scrooge?
This old man who can't help himself.
I don't know. All the kids around the ball asking for pennies?
The carolers, maybe. One of the funny things here about the end is I really love how the maid doesn't say a word, but she is so weirded out by the fact that Scrooge is happy and merry. I love that the odd looks that she's sending him the entire scene.
Yeah, just stunned.
Got a good expressive face.
Yeah. Kind of makes me wish she was a little bit more of a character, but I don't obviously need or require it. I just her reactions were enough. I think they're pretty funny.
Well, we get a bit of that when she's selling the clothes of who she kind of is. So, seeing a change in Scrooge upon her.
Yeah.
One thing I thought was off was the line of, like, I'm on my knees, I thank you, of Scrooge in his bed. He's not on his knees. He's just sitting.
He's metaphorically on his knees.
I was going to say metaphorically, spiritually.
I think if he was that thanked and blessed and graced, I think he'd get out of bed and kneel down.
If he was that moved.
Old fart. Could he even get back up?
He is so full of energy in that bed. Absolutely.
He's got bad knees.
He could.
Do you see the way he walks?
He could kneel in his bed.
Did you guys pick up how
the walking stick?
He needed a walking stick up until Christmas Day. Because he doesn't take it when he leaves the house.
No, he's so full of glee and energy.
Yeah, I wrote down psychosomatic limp.
Yeah.
The healing grace of the Christmas spirit.
What wonders it can do.
And also, some stories got to be around the making of this movie to explain the edit cut at 1 hour, 7 minutes, and 7 seconds when he's waving out the window and his hand just cuts straight up.
And his hand cuts straight up.
Like his hand's on the sill and then it's straight upwards out the window.
No, I didn't see anything on it.
You didn't? What?
I didn't even see it. So
it's definitely a blink and you miss it.
I guess I blinked.
Oh, I'm like, that's got to be something where the film was dirty, or they cut it and spliced it for some reason. Like something was between that, but
yeah, definitely could be something of that manner. How are your guys' notes looking?
Getting a little low.
I'm also pretty low. I'm gonna start skimming.
All right, well,
there was
go with you, Sprinks, again.
A good transition I liked of when they're at Fred's and they're sitting down for the meal and they're cutting the bread, or I think it's bread. It could have been like a pudding or a York pie or something like that. But when they're cutting it, it transitions to the one that Mrs. Cratchit's cutting in the morning. So I like that.
That's the transition thing I said earlier.
I got one. I like the first thing he does when he wakes up is he notices that his curtains haven't been stolen, because obviously the grave robbers stole his curtains. So it's just a nice little through line. Small. I appreciate it. Good stuff.
They didn't tear my curtains down. Kisses and tears down his curtains.
Yay!
I tore down my curtains. Yeah.
Man, I thought he learned not to be selfish.
I know. My beautiful curtains.
There's one big thing, and it's a real book question. Who says God blesses everyone at the end of the book? I thought that was a Tiny Tim thing.
I don't know.
Because Tiny Tim said it earlier, and then when he goes to the Cratchits, Tiny Tim says it again, God blesses everyone. But no. This version, Scrooge steals Tiny Tim's line without ever meeting him.
Steals it, or the other version stole it from Scrooge. Because you've seen the newer stuff where Tim says it at the end, but it could have been Scrooge's line at the end.
I think with the depiction of what this version is showing of Scrooge saying, I will be another father to him without ever meeting him physically, and then taking the line that he said that he overheard from it, I think I don't like it.
I think it's in character, but you can argue about thematics as well if you want.
I mean, it shows how much he's
changed,
taken away from Tim. Yeah.
And this Scrooge is a lighter version of Scrooge. I don't think the other Scrooges would say "God blesses everyone," even after all the changes they've been to. This one, though, this one would. I think it's in character for him. But I don't. Again, I really don't have an issue. I don't really see a line as owned by a particular character, I guess.
Let's see what I was going to say. I had a 10 point. Darn it. It's gone.
Oh, it's probably tiny.
It's so small I can't even see it. Oh, got it. So Bob is talking about how Timmy's getting stronger. He seems to be walking better. And the mom's like, I don't think so. I think he's getting weaker. It just shows so even more awesome Bob is.
Optimism.
Bob is.
Bob's great. Oh, that's your point to where optimism can be negative.
Yeah, to answer your question, Springs, Tiny Tim is the one who says it throughout the book, but it is Scrooge who says it at the end.
Interesting.
You just crushed Springs' worldview of Christmas carols.
No, he did not.
Well, that means Tim has stolen it from Scrooge and all those iterations you were thinking.
Ooh. Too bad we're not covering one of those.
Springs, you're up.
I don't think I have anything else because we popcorned around and kind of covered the end bits a bit. So, only other thing I really have is this music that's playing around like an hour 10 when he's going around the village. I think before going to Fred's, that music sounds like an actor's life for me a bit from Pinocchio.
Interesting. What year did Pinocchio come out? That was 30s.
That was the 40s.
That's 40s? Okay. No, yeah, when we're talking about Snow White, it was 30s. Sorry? Yeah, I can see that.
I doubt the composer's the same, though, because this is British film versus American film.
The composer did do another big movie after this. I don't remember what it was. Darn it. Stop doing back stuff. It wasn't Pinocchio. Writer.
Yeah, I don't really have much outside of like tiny little praises here and there, like with them. I like that the shadowy hand hangs over Scrooge and stuff like that for future Ghost of Future. But I think I'm good to go. I think we can go right into ratings if you are, because I'm done.
Yeah, I'll bring up my last point, and it's just an overall one. I think this movie holds up very well 100 years later almost. It doesn't, at least me, because I'm quite limited on how many like really old movies I've seen. I feel like this is an engaging movie because a lot of the older movies can kind of feel slow now compared to the stuff we get. But this, I felt engaged. It didn't feel slow. I don't know how else to say it. It was well paced. I mean, even the camera is fairly dynamic. There's a lot of moving, panning shots. It's not all just stationary. It's definitely digestible today. I don't know if you guys felt the same way I did.
Sounds like a rating thing.
That's a question I'm posing right now.
It is. I can see what you mean. The cinematic usage of techniques throughout the film do hold up to standard. Then again, I believe you've also seen films from the 1800s, to my knowledge.
Yeah. Quite different.
Yeah, I don't have any outstanding, criticisms of the filmmaking itself. I think it also holds up pretty well, better than I would have expected, honestly. But it is a pretty timeless story. So even though it's not the best on the adaptation list according to Screen Rant, it still holds up pretty well. Obviously, it is aged in some parts. Like, I don't think the whole grabbing a beating stick for kids would pass today, but
Or using a torch walking down the street at night.
yeah.
Or that. All right, we'll jump into our ratings, starting with 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, Sprinks.
Oh boy. Let's see. Objective, subjective, object. I'll go with objective first.
Oh,
I know. Let's see. This movie, I think, is very well done, especially for its time. I think it really holds up. The camera usage has a lot of different techniques to it. I think the dialogue, even though based off of a book and taken from a book, it does use some creative liberties of usage of what's being said, and I think it works pretty well. I think the pacing is very quick, and I don't know if that's just a time of like how much film cost or the budget of what they had, or just like their story around it. I don't know. It just feels very quick on pace, but the story beats were still met, and I don't like Belle in this version. I wish there was more ending of the Cratchits in this version. I like this aspect of Scrooge, and I think the actor, what was it, Henry something? I think he played him very well. I mean, again, Crimson, you've said he's been playing Scrooge for years on stage plays, so I think does a good job. Seymour Hicks, thank you. I don't know where I got Henry. Let's see. Lighting definitely shows that it's staged, and I don't think it's poor, and I don't want to fully discredit it because of its time, because it's 35 or before kind of thing of what they had. So I think it works. Let's see, what else have I not touched on? Costume design, I think, is of the era. It looks pretty well done. All the hats and scarves and coats and the what do you call it? Nightgowns or whatever. I think it all looks
what about
pretty well.
color theory?
Well, it's a black
How
and
is
white
that
film,
integrated?
so
The
I
shadows are
can't really
great.
tell much on color theory, unfortunately, in this film.
They mentioned the color green.
They do, and that's of envy and greed, and that's Scrooge. Wow. Boy. Yeah, I think it's overall pretty good. There's a little editing things. That's what I miss. Editing nicks in it that I'm questioned on. The effects they pulled off of the fades, I think, looked pretty darn well, or the best they could. You can tell in like the shadow, the future was Scrooge. It's not all within the shadow. You can see his shoulders poking out of the sides, but yeah, objectively, I have it as an 8.5. I think it's fine. Subjectively, this is not my, I would say, favorite Christmas Carol adaptation. I don't even think it meets my top 3. There's just things I wish would have been better. It just feels very fast. But it's not bad, and I would see it again. So I just have it as a 6. It's not offensive. It's fine.
I have a question, actually, because it seemed persistent throughout the coverage. What do you think you would have rated this if this was your first one?
My
A lot of
first
it's like,
Christmas
well,
Carol ever?
Yeah, first Christmas Carol, because you're like, the hatchets, Cratchits at the end.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I would prefer that, but if you didn't know that, do you think your subjective would be higher?
I think it would
was your
be.
only thing.
I think if this was my first introduction to Christmas Carol, my subjective score would be higher.
Okay. We can go with writer.
All right. I feel like I'm echoing a lot of sentiments here. I will start with my subjective. I'm at a 6.5. I enjoyed it. Again, not my favorite iteration of Christmas Carol, but I'd watch it again. I don't have any. It wouldn't be my first choice to rewatch it, but if it's like a family affair or anything else, I wouldn't mind rewatching it. It's not like I would leave the room when it's on. I would sit down still and enjoy it with my family. So yeah, 6.5, solid. It was fun. I enjoyed myself. Um, I have my objective was interesting because I was balancing between like, is it of the times? Is it of like, where does my interpretation for like what the goal of their story was in this variation of A Christmas Carol? So my score did have had a good range to bounce between for objective, but I think I've settled on a funny enough an 8.5.
Copycat.
I think yeah, sure. So the story I think is pretty well written. I think I like all the characters. I have a few nicks here and there that kind of went over. I think it did. My range was between a 7.5 and a 9. But over the course of like talking to you guys, I think I've settled on an 8.5, and I settled below a 9 because I think Crimson brought up a couple interesting world building bits that I did miss. That kind of added up a little bit because I think overall the characters are great, believable. I think they're all very distinct. I love the focus on Bob Cratchit. I loved his family. They're all really well fleshed out. Even like the kids to a degree. You get little glimpses of what their personality is, but they don't need to be anything beyond that. And then obviously I described how London itself as a character to kind of help emphasize the story that's ongoing right now. And then yeah, Scrooge I think is well written from beginning to end. I think the uniqueness in for me is just that I'm not used to Scrooge being so light or amenable to change as quickly. So that was kind of an interesting thing for me to kind of roll with as part of this adaptation and this iteration of the story. But I think it works for this Scrooge. I think there's some clunky lines of dialogue, but I don't really hold that too much against the film. So solid 8.5 for me.
Okay. Up to me. We'll start with my subjective. I enjoy this Christmas Carol, as you could probably tell. It's one I'll probably watch again. I enjoy Bob a lot. I like Scrooge. I like this more human Scrooge because the other iterations that I've seen, at least, he seems very exaggerated as a character.
He's very senile.
Yeah, like almost like a cartoon villain. He's not necessarily a villain, but it's almost to a cartoony level to where he's usually depicted of how stubborn he is. So I like to see more of a human version of him in this, and I quite enjoyed that. So I have this at a 7. It's good. It's not great, but it's good. I'll watch it again. Objectively, what's that echo sound? It's bouncing everywhere because I also gave it an 8.5. Not
Wild.
too many issues. I know.
3 ways high.
I know. I agree with Spranks. There was. I think editing is probably the weakest aspect of this. Even though the fades were good, there were some times where they didn't line up properly. I didn't see the hand on the mantle jump up thing. I didn't see that, but I did see when he entered in his house at the foot of his bed, there was like a very small cut. Like they cut like 2 film cells or something. You could barely see a slight jump. So that there's some little nicks with the editing stuff, but for the characters, I think they're all quite consistent. I agree with Spriggs with Belle. Because they rushed the past, Belle's character felt underdeveloped and kind of dumb because she's like, oh, one flaw in you. I'm out the door. I don't want to hear you out. Didn't seem all that realistic. It felt dramatized for the movie just to speed things along. So pacing took a little hit with that, especially with how present and future got more screen time. So a little with the pacing there. I think how they built up Bob's family, the Cratchits was decent. I think Tim would have helped with a bit more screen time with Scrooge to get that flip of now him wanting to be a second father. And that's towards the end, but also when he's talking to Present about, does Tim make it? I'm like, well, I don't believe that you care about Tim yet. There hasn't been much with Tim that we see as an audience. So Tim could have been built a bit more. The Marley thing that I brought up pretty early on about, did he get ghosts? He should have warned, or did he get warned? Well, if he doesn't warn the ghosts, so that world building thing I think is an objective flaw. But overall, pretty solid movie. So 8.5 with y'all.
Hey.
Anything before Ryder takes us out?
I was thinking on it because we all touched on the Belle thing the same-ish. Do you think it would have been better if when she left, opposed to her taking off the ring and leaving, she left and we see Scrooge take a rain box out of his pocket?
It's
no, because the dialogue is the problem with that scene. It implies that it implies that she didn't know beforehand,
Well, Sprinks is going with time devoted, because if he was giving the ring, we don't know how long they've been together. It could have been a year, 10 years, who knows?
Yeah. It would have shown that she did say yes to him, but it would have shown him wanting that.
Wanting the implication that they're proposed as an implication of time.
But we'd still have to change a lot of the dialogue, I think, for it.
Okay. I think in the instance of what I pitch, I think it would have bettered it. Because I think it would have been better of her reasoning of, like, no redemption, no follow-up, no faith in Scrooge to leave of that.
I think that would lessen the blow, but I do think a dialogue thing hinting at previous infractions would be better than that.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I like the idea of Springs. I think I would still want to. The dialogue would need to change if that were the case. That's my issue with the scene, more or less.
I guess Ryder, take us out for good.
Yeah. Well, if that's all, gentlemen, thank you for listening, audience. Whether it be Spotify, Amazon, Castbox, Good Pods, iHeartRadio, Pocket Casts, and Samsung. And if you happen to be on our visual side of things, watching YouTube or Rumble, thank you for watching there, our PNG Tuber slideshow. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe everywhere. Tell us that you hate our opinions or how much you love them, how much we're all bah humbugs. As always, I've been a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Springs.
And we wish you a happy holidays. Later, everybody.
Bah humbug.
Merry Christmas.